Today we're speaking of the end wills the way as a result of reflections from the week based on past experiences, as well as a number of conversations that I've had this week that relate to the same concept, the idea that the end wills the way. To stimulate this conversation and to further affirm this understanding, let us listen to a clip from one of Neville's lectures, The Coin of Heaven.
So I see something that I love dearly, and I wish something wonderful for it. Then I hear a rumor, or I even see something that is in conflict with what I have heard. But love is not love, which alters, when it alteration finds. So I go back to what I actually heard, and I persist in the hearing, and persist in that, and then it conforms to what I have heard, and continue to hear. So that is how we create in this world. But if I allow my senses to dictate the change, and then accept the evidence of my senses, well then I'm not really applying this law wisely. I must deny the evidence of my senses unless they conform to what I have assumed that I want to be in this world.
So he said a few distinct statements in there. He said, in conflict with what I hear, go back to what I already heard, and persist in that till I continue to hear. Now, he also spoke of senses, five sensory, appearing to create denials or our interpretation of the five senses, looking at the perspective from a place of denial rather than accurately looking at it from a perspective of affirmation and conviction in what we desire to see brought forth, which is our vision. Now, I want to reflect back on my own experience, and this is a entrepreneurial journey-based experience. In the earlier stages, one of my clients was a psychoanalytic program in Toronto. They taught workshops for those that are continuing their education as well as becoming psychoanalysts, usually dealing with childhood trauma. I had the opportunity to provide technical support for them. This is when I was running my IT business. And what I was doing was I was setting up their online group collaboration and connection via GoTo and some other tools that some of you might be familiar with. And they got together and they would have these conversations and they would bring these guest lecturers in, and I had the opportunity to sit in as I was providing the IT support, while I also had the opportunity to work on some other projects because I didn't really have to pay attention to what they're saying. I just had to ensure that the technical support was there, that the connectivity was there. Now, it was a great opportunity for me because I got to listen in on all the things that they would talk about when it comes to childhood trauma and experiences in our life that shape our self-image. And we go through this journey of recreating our experiences from our past experiences. So when we have a vision, what happens is we desire to bring it forth, but the journey, for whatever the reason may be, and now we understand why so, based on our interpretations, is presenting five sensory information as it always has: people, environment, circumstance, information. And a lot of times we're interpreting it from past experiences. And thus we're recreating circumstance and experiences again and again and again. And this can be conflicting towards our vision. Now, I'm bringing that up as a side note, but also reflective of what's being discussed, because we're going to weave it all together. But the primary reason why I'm bringing it up is while I was doing those events or hosting those events, providing the technical side for them while they were doing the events, I was also in conversation with a number of people that were part of the dynamic, as in the students and the instructors and so forth. And I learned many things. A woman came up to me and said, I think you should meet my husband. He has a very successful IT business as well. And I believe there's some connects. So she provided me his contact information and I reached out to him. And we ended up working out a lot of deals, IT deals. He became a referral partner. And eventually, when I ended up going into transition out of my IT business, they took on a number of clients in a combination of fixed fee, referral fee, percentage of recurring revenue, custom deals. It was more of a multi-dimensional transition versus selling the business for a flat fee as I transitioned away. And they were one of the key businesses that took over my existing clients. We also, as a result of the deals that we were working together, resulted in me bringing forth more contractors to help out with the projects. Now, my focus was business success, entrepreneurial success, as a result of doing what I loved to do at that time, which was providing the IT services. I enjoyed doing it, and I enjoyed the meta of it, which was the business building, and I enjoyed the experiences. And through these bridge of incidents, the opportunities revealed themselves and brought forth the vision of the success and further paved the foundation for what I had transitioned to next, which was consulting, joint ventures, and even one of the initiatives that you see me a lot in, which is this YouTube channel and working with other entrepreneurs. And now, through the bridge of incidents, discussing this information and reflecting back on experiences and putting two and two together to really understand what happened. The things, the ways, the pathway, the means that show up to bring forth your vision, a lot of times we don't know how it's going to play out. But the fact is, it does play out, and it does play out based on how we assume the journey to be. Are we approaching and living the journey from a place of faith, which is loyalty to the unseen reality, which is the vision, which is, as Neville stated, if anything shows up from the five sensory experience that appears to deny that assumption, that it only appears to deny and the interpretation is from within, and we can go back to what we actually heard, which is what we had imagined to be true, which was the success, and reinterpret everything that we are experiencing to be seen as in harmony and in contribution to that vision. Is that what we're doing? Or are we accepting past interpretations and tying it into the five sensory experience? One of our goals is to further understand that what we imagine and what we assume to be true is in the process of being realized when it comes to our vision. We have a clear vision. And he states this in one of his lectures where he says, "You are told, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you." Get first the consciousness of the things that you are seeking and leave the things alone. That means to go into your imagination and realize that what you desire to see brought forth, the vision, already exists in imagination and will one day be reflected in this outer world screen of space through the bridge of incidents, which is riddled with what we call belief and faith. Now, I'm going to refer back to the video that I did on belief and faith. And the ideal is to be in a place of faith. But for whatever the reason may be, we have followed certain kinds of interpretations from past experiences based on what we are experiencing on the day-to-day journey. And we call these, if they're disempowering, limiting beliefs, disempowering beliefs, and unnecessary resistance based on past interpretations. So we have the power then to go back to these experiences, to go within yourself and use the tool of revision, which is changing how we relate to the past experiences by imagining it to have happened a certain way, so that the inner conversations and the way we interpret the five sensory experience is seen from a place of flow, love, and harmony towards the vision. As we do that, we allow, and the key word is allow, the understandings to flow from within the day-to-day journey to the realization of our vision, the different experiences that we have, the conversations that we have, are in harmony and in contribution. Now, the way we recognize that we're doing this is the level of conviction, or, as Neville states in many of his lectures, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and that it is done. If the feeling of the wish fulfilled is true, and we already know that it's done, then we live in faith, and if we encounter any limiting beliefs, we recognize that those are past interpretations, and that is not actually who we are right now. But we, for whatever the reason may be, believe we are that way right now, and who we are right now is in harmony and in alignment with our vision. And as a result of being in harmony and in alignment with our vision, we allow certain five-sensory rearrangement, outer world rearrangement, to reflect the rearrangement of the mind, such as the examples that I showed up. And I've got many of these kinds of stories. Now, I didn't understand that to this degree that I do now upon working with this information, working in consulting, and helping others also create entrepreneurial success. I get a lot of opportunity to connect with different people and see the same things play out as theater, which is the doubt that the vision or the end wills the way via faith. Doubts are based on past interpretations. Past interpretations are what we call, sometimes referred to as beliefs or assumptions. If those past interpretations, beliefs, and assumptions are not in alignment, not in harmony, and not in contribution towards the vision, we have the power to change it. That's why we work with self-talk, revision, subconscious mind work, or, as I discussed in the last video, being in empowered information-based environments that further affirm that vision. What those environments do, or those experiences, or those inner conversations do, is evolve and connect us to the vision by changing the concept of self. As a result of changing the concept of self, we look at everything as in harmony and contribution. Now, if I go back to my reference experience that I gave, I recognize that, and this is just off the reflection of what I shared with you, but I can sit down and reflect even deeper the different benefits, the value that I got out of those experiences while I was building my IT business. But that particular scenario, I got to be in an opportunity to hear people talk about who are experts at their field, dealing with trauma and deep psychological circumstances that occur in people's life that they seem to recreate again and again and again. I got to learn the parallels and connect it back to consulting, leadership. I also had the opportunity to meet this woman who connected me with her husband, which furthered my IT business. I also had the opportunity while I was there, because I was monitoring the IT infrastructure, to work on other projects. And at that time, I had also on the side a hosting business where I was hosting a number of websites. I think it was like 20 or 30 at a time. And they were clients, and I was doing different things for them. And I got to maintain the servers while I was there. So I'm getting a benefit from having that opportunity, the space to do that work. Plus, they're getting the benefit as I'm there, because they feel comfortable and confident that if there was a technical issue, I would be there to help them. And then I was learning a lot, many different ways of recognizing the value in the existing environment. We call this resourcefulness. Now, the reason why I recognize that I was able to maintain it, and it's not to say that I was maintaining that all the time, but I recognized that it was a contribution towards the vision, is because I recognized I had faith that everything that was going on at that time was going to lead to the end result. I knew it was going to be brought forth, because I was working with this information as I had learned it from Think and Grow Rich, and I used it to create many different experiences in my life, in many different areas of my life. And as a result of repeating this process again and again, you have more faith. Now, the concept of faith also ties into the concept of WEI, which is sometimes referred to as effortless action, or action through inaction, or knowing when to act and when not to act. Now, this can seem confusing if we're stuck in our head. But however, when we are faithful towards the vision, this becomes a recognition of who we truly are, which is our ability to understand and accurately assess. So when he says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you," get first the consciousness of the things that you are seeking and leave the other things alone. He's talking about saturating the mind with what you imagine is true and recognize how it is true as the bridge of incidents unfolds to the realization of what you desire to experience. And not force and create unnecessary resistance and convolution in thinking to conform, but rather stay true to the assumption by observing how we are interpreting and changing our interpretations as our behaviors change and how we interact and how we relate, and as well as the environments and people and circumstance change to reflect that rearrangement of the mind. He says, "You will find within this deep of yourself all things to be divinely possible. Everything in this world which you can conceive of being is to you, within this present formless awareness, a most natural attainment." So this is the realization, and we want to further recognize, based on reference experience of our past, as well as connecting with others, how a vision is brought forth first from imagination. It was always that way. And all things exist. You can think of anything, you can imagine anything in your imagination, and you can identify with whatever you want in your imagination, assume it to be true, assume it to be done, and bring it forth into existence. A lot of times we're doing this unconsciously. The simple question we want to ask ourselves is, what are we saying I am to? If an interpretation shows up that appears to deny the assumption, are we saying I am to that interpretation? Because that's really what we're doing. A lot of times we're doing this unconsciously or subconsciously. He says, "Heretofore, I thought I could change others through effort. Now I know I cannot change another unless I first change myself. To change another within my world, I must first change my concept of that other, and to do that, it is best I change concept of myself. For it was the concept I held of self that made me see others as I did." So if you see all people, all circumstances, all information to be in contribution, or a lot of it, or so much of it, or more so each day to be in contribution, then you will see the theater playing out, people showing up and outer world reflecting, and everybody in a mutually beneficial way play out the theater towards the fulfillment of your vision. Because it wasn't just my vision, you could say. It was the vision of his business that he ran. It was the vision of that organization that brought me in. It was the vision of his wife. There was a number of visions playing out as theater, as harmonious reflection, by remaining true to the idea that people are, and information is, and circumstance is, and environment is in contribution and in harmony. Now, this is also known as dwelling in and from that state, which represents what we are identifying with. The concept of self is our identity in that state. He says, "Don't be anxious or concerned as to results. They will follow just as surely as day follows night." So if the concept of self is identified with the vision, then there won't be anxiousness or being concerned about the results. But for whatever the reason may be, and it's usually based on past interpretations or how we believe ourselves to be, how we believe environment to be, how we believe others to be, how we believe the circumstance to be. It is not to do with faith, because faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. It's got to do with the beliefs. Those beliefs are creating the anxiety or concerned about the results, rather than being in a state of flow and love. And you don't have to be perfect at it. Because at the end of the day, when I reflect back on my journey, there was still a lot of convolution and friction in the later stages, more so in the earlier stages, as I was working with this information. and less as the journey continues. The journey is more so a faith-based realization to visions nowadays, rather than past interpretation of identification of if it's going to be true or not true, or any kind of emotional reaction, which we would call anxious and stress, is excluded out of consciousness. It's more of a faith and conviction in the outcome. It is from this perspective that we really understand that concept of Wu Wei. And we know when to act and when not to act. And this is, you could say, the pinnacle of being an entrepreneur. Every day you've got thousands of decisions to be made. And even some of those decisions can have thousands of implications over the long term. If a person feels overwhelmed and under pressure by that opportunity to make the decisions, then they feel stressed out, convolution, and they tend to give up, failing to recognize that their ability to make the decisions is found within by their centeredness in the understanding of the concept of faith, which can be related to Wu Wei, which is a result of maintaining the ideal state of mind as well as removing the subconscious, unconscious, disempowering beliefs, limiting interpretations and assumptions that we have about ourselves, concept of self, in relation to and discovered in our experiences each day. He says, just how this desire or newly attained consciousness will embody itself, no man knows. So I didn't know about those experiences, that they were going to happen that way. But I knew that the vision was going to be brought forth. If you look at anybody that has produced a vision that is what we would say unpredictable, you'll see that they believed that it was possible, or they had faith that it was possible, and or a combination of belief and faith that it was possible, and they brought it forth. And then they can connect the dots looking backwards and reverse engineer and explain how they did it. But we do not want to identify with their explanation as the only way. What they're revealing is one way out of the infinity ways. He says, for I, or the newly attained consciousness, has ways that ye know not of, for its ways are past finding out. Do not speculate as to how of this consciousness embodies itself, for no man is wise enough to know the how. Speculation is proof that you have not attained to the naturalness of being the thing desired, and so are filled with doubts. For whatever the reason may be, we've got these doubts. We've got these disempowering or limiting interpretations. It is not who we truly are. Who we truly are is divine perfection, created in the image of the Creator as divine perfection. On the journey of life, we come up with these interpretations, but we can evaluate our interpretations each day and change them. And as we change them, and that's all we've been doing in this journey of personal development, is changing our interpretations. When you watch a YouTube video, or you read a book, or you have a conversation with somebody that you aspire to be like, or are inspired by, or has a level of success that you aspire to attain, you'll recognize that what you are believing is what they are interpreting about their experiences, their reality, and their past, and you're assimilating with that, which is ascending and transcending past your beliefs, interpretations, which may have been limited. So what we're really looking for is, how does a person see reality who has produced results? What is their interpretation? How are they perceiving this world, knowing that that is revealing the concept of them, which is your inspiration, because you have brought that forth from your own consciousness to reveal. Sometimes we have the revelations through others, or we have the revelations in our own mind, and I refer to this as inner voice conversation, or Napoleon Hill talks about this in Think and Grow Rich as the invisible counsel. It can happen through consciousness representing itself in the outer world as people, books, information, or within in imagination. He says, a bridge of incidents will develop, over which you will pass until the state is fulfilled. That means the vision is brought forth. Like pure imagining in us, and that he works in the very depths of our soul, underlying all of our faculties, including perception, but he streams into the surface mind, least disguised in the form of creative fancy, like a daydream, just a simple daydream. So what we're referring to is being lighthearted, seeing life as not as rigid as we believe it to be, not as structured as we might have interpreted it to be. What we want is fluidity of mind. Your intuition, your ability to connect with your vision, is found via your interpretations within. If we have disempowering or limiting interpretations based on how we are interpreting the five sensory experience, we can go back and, as he had described, go back to what you actually heard. When you had imagined it to play out a certain way, is the five sensory experience that you're interpreting right now the same kind of conversation that was occurring or related to the conversation that was occurring, or what could have possibly been the chain of events leading up to the fulfillment of what you have imagined, which already exists in what we refer to as the unseen reality? That simple question can allow you to find the accurate interpretation. And the accurate interpretation is found within. As mentioned, you can find it through others. You can be inspired through others. But as you continue in this journey, you will learn to listen to yourself, trust yourself, and you will find that there were stages in your life where you already did it. We were our own best friends in the beginning. If you observe children play, they can have a great time with themselves, doing what they do, living in their imaginary world, conjuring up in their imagination friends and environments in which they dwell in. This is important because, for whatever the reason may be, through our beliefs, we don't see that as the accurate and true way of being. We see that as child's play. However, when we recognize that, and we do this in personal development, especially when it comes to relationships, we always say, if you want to have the ideal relationship or friendship or business associates, you want to learn to first be your own best friend. Find the completeness within yourself. Realize that eternity is within you. It's all there in imagination. And you are fully complete right out of where you were born. Fully complete. And we can only have these interpretations that we're not on the journey, and that's what we're releasing from. Because as we release from those, we do learn to trust ourselves, listen to ourselves, and then the concept of WEI makes even more sense. We know when to act, when not to act. And action is flow-based. Now, that's not to say that there won't be challenge. They may be challenge. Doesn't have to be challenge. But we don't want to create the association that unnecessary force is required to bring forth our vision. Now we realize it's a personal preference. Rather than a fixed, rigid way of looking at reality, that it has to be that way. That's how we want to make the bridge of incidents unfold, through the concept of allowing, which is otherwise referred to as faith, and saying, what's the resistance? The inner resistance that is externalizing as outer world resistance experience. Otherwise, I call this five sensory integration. How are you integrating with the five sensory world? Are you remaining loyal to the world of the sixth sense that knows, based on the fourth dimensional self, which we talked about over our discussions? Watch the video I did on fourth dimensional thinking. I'll put a link in the description. That all things exist, all things are possible, and this is all possible in the eternal now. Past, present, and future are actually happening in the eternal now. The natural self creates associations with time and space. And that's totally fine, because this is how we live this life. This is how we integrate with the five sensory experience. But we do not want to be limited by that. And the limitations by that are contained based on our own interpretations and beliefs in our mind. And we have the power to change it. So he says, so the heavenly state you are seeking will be found only in your consciousness, for the kingdom of heaven is within you. As the will of heaven is ever done on earth, you are today living in the heaven that you have established within you. So we're picking a state of mind, or that which we imagine to be true, and we're recognizing that it is already done. and we're living in faith to the fulfillment and realization as we allow the outer world to rearrange based on the concept of WEI to externalize accordingly. And you'll know what to do, what to say, when to act. And what we really want to do is work from the cause rather than the effects. See, I've learned this on my journey as well as working with entrepreneurs. You give them a marketing plan or a business opportunity or a process to bring forth more clients, more leads. And we can talk about all kinds of sophisticated business building strategies, models, techniques, processes, how to acquire more leads, how to convert leads, how to increase the transactional value and bring forth even more clients on a recurring nature through referrals, through partnerships, and or doing partnership deals to aid in fulfillment of your product or service so you can reinvest back into future business growth or other opportunities that will bring forth expansion, acquire new businesses, and we can keep going. We've talked about these things a lot in the 2 discussions I've done on Jay Abraham's book and his work, the 2 books, Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got, and Mr. X. He's a master at this kind of stuff. If you are interested in stimulating your mind into those kinds of ways of working with your existing business, I recommend his work. I'll put the links in the description. I had the amazing opportunity to work with the Abraham Group over the years, and I learned many things. You can bring those strategies to the presence of somebody, but based on their psychology, they're going to believe that they can implement those things or not. So we want to go to the source of it all, which is consciousness, and ask ourselves, what is our interpretation of this journey of creating success or entrepreneurship or whatever kind of success you want? Do we believe it's possible, number one? I mean, really? Because if you do, then you have faith. And then you just allow things to unfold as they must through you and from you. Because I'm all about high leverage. If I'm going to take an action, I want to make sure that there are many different forms of potentiality being created from the action. But one action can produce many different forms of results. For example, very practical, these YouTube videos that I put out, they reach a large array of people, and they help and produce results in the lives of others. As a result, I get many business deals, propositions, saturation in the market, let's say, and all these other kinds of things that are based on doing one thing that produces many different chain of events based positive effects or results in the world. Take the content, chop it all up, and turn it into a program. I could send the content over to somebody on LinkedIn, and it could start the conversation. I could take these videos and send them to my clients, the ones that I made in the past, and they could refer to it in relation to our discussions. I could take the audios and I can get them transcribed and put them into books. I could do these different kinds of things that are potentialities that are available that you don't have to know how to do these things, what I found. Because I've seen many people create success and they didn't necessarily know how to do these things. But some way, somehow, they were guided from within to these kinds of opportunities because they had a belief and a faith in their vision, in their outcome. They believed in themselves. They maintain, whether they were conscious of this information or not, that assumption that it's going to be done, and some way, somehow, it was brought forth. So if we've got limiting thoughts, limiting beliefs, disempowering doubts that seem to bind us, we have the power to change it. In fact, let's go through an affirmation right now that will further affirm what is being discussed. You can say, I recognize that everything that shows up on my vision more so each day is in harmony and in contribution to my vision. I can change right then and there, or upon cause and effect reflection, my interpretation and find the accurate interpretation. I will be guided to the books, the people, the circumstances, the information that will bring forth the accurate interpretation. As a result, I realize that the senses are in harmony and in contribution to my vision. I realize that by persisting in my vision, I experience more flow and love on the journey to the fulfillment of my vision. I allow myself to be in the ideal state of mind and accurately interpret what shows up in a way that I feel at ease and at peace with my vision. So this kind of affirmation / inner conversation allows us to work with whatever shows up, allows us to reduce or eliminate the internal resistance, which is causing the unnecessary complexity and convolution in the mind, and thus reflecting as experience of added complexity and convolution in the journey. And we're doing this all the time. We're having inner conversations, inner dialogues all the time. And what we want to do is order our conversations. And we could be stimulated, as mentioned earlier, through inspiration or through affirmation or through how others interpret reality from a place of empowerment, and adopt those kinds of inner conversations, such as the example that I just gave, to create more flow towards the realization of your vision. And he states, "My time sense is turned around, and now I move across a bridge of incidents, a series of events that compels me to move towards the fulfillment of that invisible state." So you're guided from within. You selected the state. You have made a commitment towards your vision. And now you're being guided from within. And the resistance between where you are right now and the destination is our beliefs. And we can change the beliefs. And by changing the beliefs, we experience less resistance. And we have more of those kinds of synchronistic, accurate interpretation, flow-based experiences that I shared with you on the journey to bringing forth what you desire. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.